A real pleasure to be here today. Thanks for inviting us. Really great to see Jenny, and hopefully feel you all out there and see my wonderful panel, who I will introduce you to shortly. So I think we've got about an hour. As Jenny said, no stupid questions. Throw anything in the Q&A you can. I'll try and keep track of it and try and answer as much as possible. I've got a great panel here that I'll introduce you to in a second. What I'll start with, though, is just tell you a little bit about who I am and who UK Music are. So, UK Music, a lot of you won't have heard of us, I don't think, I doubt, because we're the body that represents the music industry in the UK. So we have a lot of members you may have heard of. So if you're a musician, for example, later on you might join the Musicians Union, they're one of our members. If you write songs, if you're a composer, you may join or have heard of the Ivors Academy. You will have all have heard of record labels. You'll understand that artists often work for them, so they're represented by the BPI. We have independent labels too, represented by AIM. Artists, featured artists, music managers. We have publishers involved as well, producers, and you'll hear a lot about production in a bit as well, and collecting societies, PPL and PRS. So it's quite a complex landscape, I guess. It's a very interesting place to work in. Lots going on. If you look at our website, ukmusic.org, you'll be able to find out loads more information. And for any careers advisors, teachers, parents watching as well, we've got lots of advice there as well on roles in the industry. Because believe it or not, well, until COVID hit, music industry was actually one of the most successful parts of the economy. So growing very well, lots of exciting jobs, loads of different roles, all that sort of stuff. So what we're going to do today is introduce you to a variety of people that work in really quite different areas, hear a bit about them, and then I've got a few questions, but I really, really, really hope you all watching have got a load of questions too. So don't be shy, please. Right then, so I'm obviously the oldest out of everyone here. And I've been in music probably since I was about 14, when I picked up the guitar and started playing chords, play with my mates and bands, as I'm sure lots of you watching do. Never studied music at school, interestingly. I just learnt myself, and everyone's path is different, I hasten to add, and got into education. And I started teaching. Now, a lot of you who play an instrument might be interested in earning a bit of money later on, so teaching is always a great way of doing that. And over years and over time, and as my life progressed, I finally got the job at UK Music, which has been really interesting, and I'm really chuffed to be here and to talk to you about careers. So we'll go. If you're all right, panel, what I'll do is I'll call out your name, and if you could just to start with introduce yourself and explain what you do, because we've got a real interesting selection here. So we'll start on my screen. Jess is first. So could you kick us off?
I feel like I was first last time, Molly.
You must just pop up on my screen at the top left. I know I do. Why?
My name is Jess Izzat. I'm a radio presenter and producer. Sometimes I present things in person as well, like hosting events and things. My first actually paid hosting job is for Shorts on Tap, which I still currently work for. They're a short films company, but mostly people know me for BBC Introducing. I host the Introducing in London show, which goes out every Saturday night, 8 till 10 p.m. on local radio on BBC Radio London. And I also produce that show as well. So it involves listening to the music throughout the week, picking our favourites, doing interviews, and of course the show, which goes out on the Saturday night. I also present on Magic Chilled, which is Monday to Friday, 4 till 8 p.m. It is a sister station, a DAB station to Magic FM, which you probably know a lot better. And that's part of Bauer. So I've been doing that for quite a while now. And yeah, just love my show there. 90s, noughties, current hits, all that kind of shebang. And also I host the Record Club, which was actually born out of lockdown. So that's a job which has been a positive thing over the past year. But of course, record shops had to close because of the pandemic and everything. So we decided, Record Club, Record Store Day, Official Charts and Album Day decided to come together and create the Record Club, which is every other Wednesday. And we're on Facebook Live. I think we're now on Twitch actually, and also Twitter. And it is just a live stream. You get to watch us as well. And For example, our most recent guest was Jack Savaretti, and today we've got Lauren Bula, and we basically go through their new album, which is a really wicked job. And I think that's basically it, but mostly radio and mostly music, new music.
Fantastic, thanks, Jess. Sounds great. And next on my screen is Cicely.
Hiya, I'm Cicely Bolston. I'm a mastering engineer, so I do the final stage of the kind of recording and mixing music for release process. I am employed by a studio called Air Studios, but based at a mastering studio called Alchemy Mastering. So yeah, I've done sort of various engineering and studio jobs over the years, kind of assisted. I've done recording, I've done bits of mixing, not professionally, but while I was at university especially. And then yeah, went into mastering about 7 or 8 years ago, and have just been there ever since. I feel like it's not as many different options, but I just do mastering.
Okay, great. That's great. Thanks, Cicely. And so Ninja, you're next.
Hello. Hi. I'm Ninja. I am in an indie rock band called the Go Team. I started off when I was in my final year of university, and basically I kind of found an advert, and the band was already formed, and we're looking to play a festival in Sweden. And I agreed to be the front person because I was a student, and I was like, I want a free trip to Sweden. That sounds good. Went there. Agent and record label loved us, and I just kept getting asked to do more and more shows, and I fell into being a band because I originally was a solo rapper and was not interested at all in bands or rock music or that kind of genre. Our first album was nominated for Mercury Music Award. We have just released our sixth album on last Friday. So it's available now on Spotify. No, not Spotify. Buy it, Apple, and on vinyl. Not Spotify, because they don't pay very well. Anyway, album number 6 is coming out, and we've been touring all over the world. We've played all of the major festivals all over the world. And yeah, there's 6 of us in the band, and I'm the front person. And we've had an amazing time and had loads of interesting experiences. So I hope that I can answer any questions to do with live or touring or being an artist or being on stage or front person or anything like that.
Yeah, thanks, Ninja. That's great. I look forward to talking about favourite moments later on, because you've got some great stories of going to Japan and all sorts of stuff. So that'd be brilliant. James next. Hi, James. All right.
Hello. How you doing?
Good, thank you.
Yeah. Oh, how am I supposed to follow all these great people? What do you want me to say? No, I'm a production manager and tour manager, and yeah, I tour with bands. Basically, the easiest way to describe it is I tour with bands. So I graduated university. Whilst I was at uni, I was working with different artists already, and then once I graduated, I just started going on tour, living the rock and roll dream.
What sort of bands what are the bands you play, who go on tour with?
So I like people like The Specials. I production manage those. Paul Weller, Ocean Colour Scene, and then I've done stuff in the past. So people like Slayer, all like literally everything, every sort of genre of music. I've sort of been around the block a bit, and then alongside that, I run the production on a festival called Bloodstock, which is like a heavy metal festival in Derby.
Brilliant. Well, I want to pick apart all your roles a bit more afterwards, I think, to help everyone watching understand it. So we'll come back to that in a sec. And just last up is Adam. Hi, Adam.
How are you all? Can everyone hear
good.
me all right? Oh, great. So I'm a professional drummer. I have been playing drums ever since I was about 15 when I first started, and I suppose from the age of about 16, managed to find a way to play drums professionally and earn money my whole entire career. That's been nearly 20 years now. I'm currently Sticksman for a UK artist called Tom Grennan, he's been had a lot of play on Radio 1 this year. I've been playing with him since the very beginning. Before that, I ran a drum shop for a little while. I used to play in little covers bands to earn money. I used to set up my own little jams in my hometown in Northampton, and then I did the same in London, set one up myself so I could network with new people. That was really good for me to get my foot on and figure out what the London scene was about, that, you know, got me in the doors of like auditions and stuff like that. And so, yeah, I'm basically a touring drummer, musician, but I have been doing recording over the years in other people's studios. But since the pandemic started, I invested pretty much everything in this space that I've got here. And since then, I've been tracking drums for producers, singer-songwriters all across the world from this room. And I started that about 12 months ago. And it seems to be the new path for me, as well as touring and doing live shows, but not as much. But I do love, you know, doing the live shows. But I've always seeked other opportunities to make a living out of playing these bad boys. So, but yeah, I look forward to talking to you all later. Any questions about more in depth about how I got to meet and get into, you know, like high profile gigs or sessions or anything like that? Just feel free to ask.
Thanks, Adam. And I met you in your drum shop first. Do you remember that?
Yeah, that was
say hello. Great. And you mentioned something really important that we'll touch on later, the impact of sort of COVID on live music and music generally. So we'll be able to talk a little bit about how people have responded to that and what the future looks like. Because if you think about a career in the industry at the moment, you might be thinking, oh God, not many events going on, not many gigs. So, you know, we can cover that in a little bit. I thought what might be an interesting way to approach it for everyone watching is obviously everyone watching will have a favourite band or a favourite song or a single they've got on repeat at the moment. So everyone watching, just think for a second and maybe shout it out in your classroom. Sorry, teachers. Maybe just shout out what your favourite single is or your band. I used to have Nirvana all over my skateboard. You know, that Dead Kennedys t-shirts, all that kind of thing. You know, so you'll all have one that is part of your identity. Now you know the song or the artist, and you're like a consumer, if you like, of the music. So what I thought would be interesting is to work through everyone here how you engage, or what you're a part of that process. So to start with, I reckon probably Ninja, because you are the person that would write it and or come up with the lyrics and all that sort of stuff. So what's the process for you and your band? How do you come up with the song in the first place, the thing that everyone listens to later on? Oh, you're on mute.
Just kidding. All right. So there are 6 people in our band, and someone called Ian does most of the songwriting, and then I do lyrics, or some of the lyrics, depending on what the song is. So Ian kind of comes up with melodies, lots of samples. Our music has quite a retro feel to it, from like 60s or 70s, and it's lots of samples kind of put together. And then he'll send me the song, and he kind of uses funny descriptive words and will give me an idea of what he wants to write. And sometimes he'll say, can you make it curly? Or he'll say, can you kind of make it frilly, or whatever. He'll use kind of funny words. And then I'll listen to the song. And what I tend to do is put the song on repeat, and that song will be played 100 times or 200 times, and I'll get ideas in my head, and I'll write down keywords. And I write my own stuff solo to the Go team. But when I'm writing for the Go team, I kind of have to. It's almost like I'm writing to someone else's specification. So I'm going, okay, what keywords are good in the Go team? What is really hooky? What words are catchy? What stands out? What is really rhythmic? What is not always lyrics that are really kind of deep and meaningful. It's not necessarily life experiences. It's stuff it's fun and it's punchy and it's really action packed. So I'm always looking for keywords like that, and I'll just write down lots of keywords, and then catchy phrases will start coming together, and I'll start putting those words together, and start creating the lyrics around that. And I'll come up with a theme. So I'll hear something, I think, oh, this sounds really breakdancey. And then I'll kind of make the lyrics to do with breakdance. Or I'll say, no, this sounds like a fighting kind of song. We've got a new single out called Pow. And I thought this sounds fighting. This makes me want to beat someone up. Not that I would, of course. But I was like, yeah, this makes me want to, yeah. So the lyrics are kind of about like girl boxing, and they're kind of in that kind of area. And then I'll send it back to Ian. I'll send him back ideas, and we'll go back and forth for a little bit, and then we'll go to the studio and I will record all of that. And he won't always use all of it. Sometimes we'll chop up bits and pieces, or sometimes something might get changed in the studio. But it's really a collaboration and more of what his musical tastes are and what he requires from me. So I have had experience of writing to spec before. So I've had to write like children's music, like children's raps and stuff, where they've given me a cartoon character and told me the personality of that character, and I've had to write lyrics. So it's like that kind of experience. It's like, I know what the spec is for this type of music, for this song, and I'm writing to that spec. And then I never really know what the song's going to sound like at the end, because he does a lot of chopping and sampling, even with my vocals, and then adds other people's vocals in. And so the album will come out and I'll be like, this is different to what I recorded. And sometimes I've had to relearn the song because he's moved lyrics around. And we recorded the video for Pow, and I had to read the lyrics as I was rapping for the video, because I was like, this is not what I rapped originally, because he's moved things around. But it's a really interesting collaboration between us, yeah.
Oh, great! So that's a great example of sort of writing to spec, because a lot of lyricists, a lot of songwriters they'll have a job like a contract, won't they? And they'll have to write, they'll have an opportunity to write, I don't know, a song for an advert, or they'll have opportunity to, like I say, put the top line on a piece of music that exists already, and they'll get the opportunity to write that. So if we come across to Adam probably next, because you're sort of the next stage along, where you work on your drums and you've got a lot of artists you work with. How do you collaborate with, say, Tom Grennan in the recording and the studios and stuff?
I mean, a lot of the songwriting process is can be between Tom and different songwriters all over the world. You've got some LA songwriters, you've got UK based songwriters. One of my friends, Danny, he's wrote some songs with Tom in the past. And I suppose the process of where Tom is, because Tom is a signed artist, it's a bit different to, I mean, he is a singer-songwriter. He writes all of his, he's very involved in the writing, Tom is, which is great. Whereas sometimes when you see writers, sometimes they might get gifted the song, they might buy the song outright, or I suppose if you're in a band environment, you collaborate and write together. But how I get involved with something like that is that the song will be written. Tom will have the basic guidelines of what the song is going to be, and then there becomes a point where I'd get drafted in and like, right, let's get you in, and just throw a load of ideas. What do I think? What does the producer think? And it's so far since I've done them sort of things, it's been the producer's art direction who's directed me, them what they want, and then I try my best to give exactly what he's after, whether it be, playing different parts or tuning drums, using timpanis or layered drums. And I suppose to get involved in something like that, I'm lucky because I play with Tom. I can get the call because I'm directly in contact with all of them. But with a lot of Tom stuff, the producers, some other producers Tom uses, it might not all be the same producer for the same record. They've got their own little team that they stick to, and because I'm not part of that team, I don't necessarily get the opportunity to play on that particular song. So for me as a drummer and a musician, it's important that if I have a relationship with any producers, I really keep hold of that, because you just never know when the phone's going to ring and who it's going to be for, no matter what level, because from a young age, all of my friends that were like, oh, can you come to my garage and record this drum kit on 2 mics? I'm like, yeah, cool. You know, you see some of them now, 10 years down the line, got hit records and massive studios, and they still call you up. So I think as far as getting into a session, it's you know, it's about getting as many producers, other session musicians as well, you know.
Yeah, right. Thanks, man. Yeah, it's an important word to note, isn't it? Network. Yeah,
massively for me.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, just everyone watching this, just if you're interested in music, the business, or the creation side, you know, you want to be creating networks of friends. Initially, it'll be your friends. Like, you know, you might have a friend's band you play with, or you might help them out with carrying the equipment in. You might, you know, you might love putting on events and you know, use your friends' bands or DJs to get involved in those sort of days. But that's your initial network, and you just keep growing it, keep growing it, keep growing it. It's so important, and you'll meet the same people over and over again in music, and it's, you know, really, really important. So network is the key. Thanks, Adam. I think probably the next, would you say Cicely? I think probably, if you imagine you've gone to the studio, you've recorded. Did you used to do production, then you moved to mastering? Could you talk us through the both?
So I didn't do production professionally, but I did do it at university. I did study the kind of sound recording and music degree. And so the kind of the process of making the music that, you know, you will hear is, you know, the recording happens, or the kind of creation of what's going to be going into, I mean, this is simplified because obviously at any stage people end up going back and changing things and working together again up and down the kind of chain. But so everything gets kind of recorded and captured. So actually we'll do it in the context of my studio. So Air Studios has recording rooms, huge spaces. They record orchestras, they record bands, they record individual singers, they do like all of the Netflix scores at the moment, they do like whatever it is, they're capturing all the music. And then all of that goes to a mix process, which is where the kind of the songs really start getting sculpted and honed, and they bring all the different levels, all the different inputs, you know, vocals, drums, whatever, all in together and kind of balance them all against each other to make the whole song. And that whole process takes a really long time. It's like really involved. And it's funny because often mastering, which is what I do, gets kind of spoken about as this, like, it's this very small bit. I didn't know about it until I went to university, until afterwards, because it's this kind of, if we're talking about the time frames, we work on such a small portion of the overall project that it, like the overall time it takes to make an album or something. So whereas the mix might take months and months, you know, the mastering is a day, or, you know, one day every couple of weeks that you're kind of doing tweaks, sending it back, coming back. But we take something that sounds almost finished, like you could play it, it would work on your computer, it would work on your phone, you could play it and it would be fine, but it might not quite sound the same as, you know, you're listening to Tom Grennan on Spotify, or you're listening to whoever. It won't quite match up, perhaps is the word to say. So what I do is I take the nearly finished and just polish it. I make sure that it's ready for release. I make sure there aren't any sort of problems with any of the audio. I make sure that people listening on their phone are going to enjoy it, that people listening on their huge speakers at home are going to enjoy it, that people are listening on the vinyl are going to enjoy it, as well as the CD if you still listen on those, or whatever it is. So I'm kind of thinking about the context of the overall music. I'm thinking about the kind of, I'm taking what's being created and what lots of people have spent a long time making that one thing, and then putting it in context of the wider music industry and the other releases, and, you know, thinking a little bit about what other artists this music might be played alongside, and does it sound right, or does it sound, you know, if you swapped between them, if you went from I don't know, a Tom Grennan track to a James Brown track, I don't know, like, is it going to sound really weird because that's what they want it to sound like? That's a terrible example because that's not what they want to sound like. But like, if you're kind of listening to something that sounds quite bandy, does it sound like other bands? So yeah, I'm kind of taking all of that and doing the kind of final QC stage.
Right.
The kind of quality control, the listening, checking, but making it sound as good as possible. So what I do is the kind of the final little bit of the creative process. You know, the huge amount of creation has happened already. but just doing the final stage. And I go straight from me to the labels, sending the final delivery actual files that the labels will then upload through their systems that then get played out on Spotify. So what leaves me is what people hear when they listen.
An important stage in the process. I mean, I'm sure there's, especially to a trained ear, I bet there's a huge difference between a non-mastered and a...
Yeah, or you know, there's sort of as much difference as there needs to be, which is a bit of a wily sort of answer. Yeah. You know, if something comes and it sounds good and it sounds finished, then great, you know, then send it out and that's fine. But if something comes in, you know, and often the biggest difference is for like quite new artists perhaps, or people who have been involved at every stage, who have really made the whole thing themselves, and they kind of need the final stage to just make sure that someone else's ears are on it and make sure that someone else's sort of objective opinion is on it before it gets released out into the world. So it's an interesting one, because it can be as creative or as purely technical, just, you know, saying yes, it starts when you hit play and it stops when you hit stop, and it doesn't cut off before the music is finished, and you know, those are the kind of little technical details. But it could also be a kind of collaborative, I've made this, but I want it to sound like this, you know, how can we kind of balance those two?
Brilliant. Thanks, Lee, it's great. I imagine then, Jess, it probably especially like DIY artists will send it, if they're recording yourself, introducing. If you're an artist out there, you should definitely upload your stuff to BBC Introducing. But radio is such an important medium still, isn't it? Do you want to talk a little bit about what happens how you find music, how you play it, how you interact with it?
I feel like with Introducing, there are people who just make music in their bedrooms and they send it to us. In fact, actually, I know that. A lot of the time you can tell from the waveform as well, or like Sissy was saying, was like, you know, the end where it tails off for ages and you're like, oh, there isn't 30 seconds of ending on this. So we do actually have to check all of the tracks. It's a really
important thing to think about.
Yeah.
You know, you can't have this like 1 minute long ending. It's not going to work. You know?
Yeah, I mean, we do like a savage cut at the end. So if you want that bit at the end, you just need to tell us. Yeah, I guess radio could be the next step, or of course you could tour and then tease all your fans and then say, oh, this one isn't out yet, blah blah blah, like whatever. But sometimes I guess they tour songs which aren't even recorded yet as well, which is quite funny when they do that. It's a bit frustrating. I just remember actually Tom Grennan is one of the first people that I unofficially worked with on Introducing. I was doing work experience at BBC Three Counties, and my job was actually to tell him not to swear when he came on air. So like I brought him in and he, within probably about 15 seconds, dropped the F-bomb, which was me thinking, oh my God, I'm never going to work in radio again. But yeah, and then he did, there's this, oh yeah, Something in the Water. And it literally, at the time, I remember I was filming on this fat iPad and I just had that 15 seconds of him singing There's Something in the Water. And that's all I had of that track until about like 4 years later when he actually fully recorded it and put it out. But yeah, that was good times. But yeah, I guess when you upload your tunes to Introducing, so you've done all the rest of the parts, you've done all the creative bits and you think, right, I'm ready to get it out there to the world. Of course, you can upload it to all your streaming platforms, but I think radio serves a purpose in where even though you don't have to have radio play to be successful, I think sometimes it will come as a reflection of it as well. So I think we work hand in hand. I hate when artists think, oh no, it's not getting played on the radio, I'm not good enough. And it's like, sometimes it's just like the full path of an artist. And for example, for me, I have 2 hours a week to play with for my show, and we get sent approximately, it used to be 500 tracks a week on average. Now I think it's probably about 600 or 700 tracks a week, and it is impossible to play all the best artists. So we try and work with artists as well, like forwarding them on to different shows. But yeah, I always like to think that it's not the be all and end all. And also some songs just aren't right for radio. So again, don't be disheartened by it. But when you do have a banger and it pops off and Olivia Rodrigo comes out of nowhere and she gets played and she's #1 for weeks on end, I think, yeah, you know, you've got something that people are really connecting with. And I think it's more often than not like a reflection of a really good track that everyone is getting on board with. And I think that's what pop is about, really, at the end of the day. But yeah, I don't know what else I was meant to answer with this, like in terms of the journey.
That's great, Jess. That's cool. It's about that sort of feeling and how you respond to music. And your role in it is to find music you enjoy, connect with, and share it, I guess, is it? So
I think for me as well, we're the starting point, and we have to reflect everything that we kind of have. So obviously London is a huge patch, and dance music is huge, rap music, like just literally every single genre. London is such a melting pot, and we try and reflect all of it. I think in some other areas of the country, it's slightly different. I know that I was talking to one of the presenters from Solent, and they don't quite have as many dance tracks. And I think that there is like a gravity pulling people to London, thinking that that's where you have to be to make it. And I think over the past year, it's proven untrue. And I think obviously there's a lot of initiatives to get music and more funding and just more pinpoints into other places. So actually there's been a few new shows actually announced through BBC Radio 1. So there's a new soul show, and it specifically is coming from Manchester, hosted by Manchester, a person called Victoria Jane. And it's just like, I think it's just kind of spreading things and making it not so London centric, which obviously like, I think London's the best place, but I have to say that. But obviously all over the country, there's loads of good things. And I actually started my industry career in Newcastle. I did radio, student radio, NSR, and then I went on to do student radio as well. Actually, no, it wasn't kind of student radio at Spark Sunderland. I wasn't a student anymore. They have a community license, so I was allowed to be there, but I kind of came in after I'd graduated. But yeah, I love the DIY scene there. Like Sam Fender really flying the flag, I think.
Yeah, wicked. So you started there. I think that's brilliant. So moving on. So you mentioned live could happen any moment, really. But James, you're the master of live. How do you work with bands? How do you find going out and touring with bands? And you know, how important is part of the music scene is live?
I guess it's really important, because you know, if you see some of these smaller artists, I think like there's like a story about how Calvin Harris never used to want to play with a band, but because he played with a band and kept playing loads of festivals, it heightened his career to the next level, where now he's like the highest paid DJ in the world and he doesn't have to do that kind of thing. But in terms of what I do for artists, you know, I'll get like a creative brief from an artist. So for instance, Tom Grennan, like last year I was working for Melody VR, and we broadcast a show from, I think Adam probably would have been playing drums on it, but we broadcast a show from Brixton Academy. So then, you know, like Tom Grennan's people will come to us and say, we want to do this, we want to do this, we want to do this. And then the Melody VR creative team will say, okay, we want to do this, this, and this. And then it's how my job is to sit in the middle and say, okay, well, how do we do that? What do we need, like infrastructure wise? What lights do we need? What lasers do we need that's going to come down from above his head? And for instance, like Burna Boy did the same last year, and you know, they came to us and said, we want a box. Sort of 3 days before the show, they were like, we want him to come out with this box. And it's like, what do you mean, like a box of light? And it's okay, well, how do we make a box of light? And then it's kind of my job just to sort of make those things happen.
That production was unbelievable on that
day. Yeah, so
put that on your CV.
Quote. Yeah, it was good. It's that kind of thing. So for instance, at the moment I'm working on the Specials Next tour, which is supposed to happen at the end of August into September, depending what COVID decides to do. But you know, the band have just recorded an album, they've got a theme, they've got like a look they want to go for. So they'll say to me, you know, they'll draw it on a piece of paper and say, this is what we want. And then it's my job to go to suppliers like the company that supplies with lighting and audio and say, okay, well, they want to do this. This is how they kind of want it to look. Can you give me some designs of how, you know, what you can do? And then I take it back to the band and say, this is what they can do. And then they say, that's too expensive. How do you make it cheaper? You know, that kind of thing. And I guess it depends what hat I'm wearing.
Yep.
So that, and then like the Bloodstock stuff, I'm like involved in the advance of the festival. And then on the weekend, I stage manage the main stage, which is like hands-on, unloading trucks, loading trucks, pushing risers around, getting bands on and off stage, you know, sometimes jumping in for artist techs that can't make it, which is like a big problem at the moment for festivals because of the quarantining in the UK. A lot of artists, like, you know, that are flying in from other countries, like, I don't know, red list countries, etc., they're going to have to quarantine for 2 weeks. Now, if you put like a 15-person crew quarantining for 2 weeks, it starts to become really expensive, and it doesn't make sense for the artists to come with all their crew, etc. So that's kind of like, and I'm probably going off topic now, but that's really like impacting the way that my kind of job at festivals, etc., is going to work, because, you know, now we might have to cover for people that can't make it because of restrictions.
Yeah, cool. Well, what's always fascinates me about music and these sort of chats is, and hopefully people watching, you know, there's such a variety of jobs, and there's so many technical elements as well that you wouldn't necessarily think if you just go to a gig, you know, go and enjoy the music. You wouldn't necessarily think about all the work that's gone on behind the scenes beforehand in the build-up. So I think we've got a question coming. Let me just open this up. Big up John Spence School, where Sam was up. Oh, there we go. So Sam Fender must have been a pupil at John Spence School who are watching. So thanks for that. That's ace. Brilliant. Well, I mean, there's a really nice connection as well with Tom Grennan running through this. What I'd like to just touch on now is just hear about what you love about your job, so the people watching can sort of understand, hopefully understand a bit more about what you do. But, you know, what are the highlights? What are some of the highlights of your job? Just so they hopefully try and inspire them to think about, oh, that could be lots of fun. We've got Cicely's hand straight up. Go on.
I have just really vivid memories from when I was at school of, like, I always played instruments pretty badly, but always there. And just really loving the, like, just being really interested in how things got done behind the scenes. So, like, for a little time, I wanted to be a backing singer, because I knew that I didn't want to be a singer, like the performer. Turns out I can't sing very well, so that dream quickly disappeared. But like, it was the behind the scenes, and it was how things got put together. I love theatres and like how theatre sound comes off, and also generally just like shows. And so yeah, what I love is being able to be part of the kind of like the creation process of what's going on at all the points before the music gets released and the performers and the kind of artist, you know, gets released. It's being able to be sort of part of the like the industry in its full term, creating things that we all enjoy and everyone likes. Oh, I think most people.
Yeah, well, definitely. It's a really fun industry, isn't it? I think generally. I mean, there's obviously hard work. It mustn't be confusing, but yeah. Oh, Adam's hand up.
Oh, just like, I think my favourite part of anything that I do is when you're given a live show and you've never worked on it before, or someone gives you a track that you haven't worked on, you have to try and recreate that live with the band and the tools that you've got available. Some of it can be involved in programming. Like some of the tracks are so layered, you've got to figure out what parts are good, what parts the band are going to play, what parts are going to be done by a synth. And I think analysing all of that on a record, which is just something that's just been produced, and you hear it, and then you listen to it and go, how are we going to do this live to make it the best it can possibly be? And I find that a huge challenge. And the great thing is about every song is different, and that's what I find the most challenging. And you know, so I think for me that's the bit that keeps me the most interested, and I find it really fun to analyze and then execute and then finally put that show that you've created, almost like an MD type. I can imagine that's a really fun job for people, but I sort of, being a drummer, it's my job to control the tracks, the backing tracks. Sometimes the lights, you know, you have triggers triggering lights. Or I remember once I was playing, I think it might have been Brixton Academy the first time with an audience, and I had a foot switch for the pyro, and I was waiting for this red light to come on the whole time, and then these like two massive cannons come off. At the time I hit something else, and that's another fun thing. But yeah, for me it's recreating a live show from a recording.
Okay, but cannons help. Chuck some cannons in, definitely.
Yeah.
And MD, I'll come to you in a sec, Jess. And did you have your hand up? We'll come to you in a sec. So MD, musical director, right? You've got somebody who what their job is to make sure the music's all.
Yeah, there's genuinely someone in the band it's their main. I mean, I suppose it's always a collective thing, but to save too many ideas in one room, you know, it's even in a writing process, it can be too much. But it'll be one person's sort of you know, responsibility to put them ideas to the whole band.
Well, thanks, Adam. Great. Jess, did you have your hand up, or was it?
Kind of. I have something ready. I've noticed there's a question in the box, but it's for technical.
Right, I'll while you're chatting, I'll open up the question box. Go.
Yeah. So, well, basically, I am just a massive music fan. I never studied music at school. I couldn't learn an instrument to save my life. I remember out a band, and because I didn't know any instruments, I was the singer and I was awful, so it just never happened. But basically, for my job, I get to listen to music as my job, pick my favorites and get to play them on the show on air. And I guess the closest thing that I'll get to a live performance, apart from really bad karaoke, is actually doing a live show as well on air. And I've covered a couple of times on Radio 1, and honestly, that studio is like a spaceship. And when they do the countdown, I honestly don't know how musicians do the live lounge with the big like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It literally blows my mind. It makes my heart feel like I'm going to have a heart attack. But yeah, it's the best feeling ever, and especially the response you get as well. Not only the listeners loving it, but the artists also loving the support. And I think meeting artists at probably the most exciting part of their career, their first interviews, their first sessions, their first ever live gigs, for me as a fan, that is like the most exciting part to be a part of. And you're kind of probably meeting the artist at, I don't want to say like as most themselves, because obviously they grow and they form into what they're going to be eventually. But when you meet them on their first record, their first album, their first EP, their first songs, you're getting really just the rawest form. And I just think it's probably the most exciting part of their career. And also really jaded by being interviewed by people like me by that point as well. So they actually want to talk to me.
Catch them early. Right. Well, we had a question come in, so we'll jump to the question quickly. So we've only got about 15 minutes left, so make sure we get to it. Thank you, Sacred Heart School. Hello. Do you find that people who work on the tech side of things tend to train in music first, or in technology, IT, engineering first? So, Adam, do you want to come in then, Cicely?
Yeah, I'll just, because I think that might be off the back of what I was saying in regards to doing tracks. Now, I'm completely self-taught, but I have put a lot of hours into learning computer programs such as Logic, Cubase, originally Pro Tools. I've taught myself to do that in many stages in 15 years. Even from when I got my first computer, I was learning how to do it. And I think if you're going to get into the technical side of making tracks and being like I mean, I engineer myself in this studio here. I've taught myself to do that. I mean, I've kind of always been interested. If you're interested in it, then I suppose you'll always find a way to learn. But there are a lot of other engineers that have been doing it for a long time, that have studied, and like they learn so much more and are around more people to get that information a lot quicker. Because it hasn't been on my radar, I've gradually done this over 15 years. But the backing track thing, that has always been on my agenda for like triggering pads and working out how it's going to go live on my aspect. But it just somehow ends up being a drummer's responsibility in the early days.
So,
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
what I was going to say actually is into that. It's sort of, I know people who come from both sides. Like when I was choosing what to, like I did want to study, I did want to go to university, and I wanted to do music, but that had a kind of recording side. So it's like, I was kind of reflecting on it, and like I think it's about the two sides. So I kind of did music, but I wanted to do recording. I did end up doing an engineering course, which then gave me this kind of really, really broad basis to then go off and sort of apply the bits that I've not known in like a much more direct way afterwards, which was a really, really useful grounding for me and has helped in my job. I'm very much on the sort of technical aspect, but I've come from the music start. But equally, I know lots of people who started just purely on the music, but were interested enough in the engineering, and also people that did much more purely engineering, so much more sort of audio engineering or even physics, but got involved in like student radio, for example, or got involved with, but always were playing. And because they had a kind of physicsy engineering sort of mind, they were then called on to do the bits of recording or the bits of production for the kind of music side when the music people hadn't had it. So it really can be either, but it's interesting that to me, it's quite clear that it's useful to have the kind of the openness to using whichever side it is that you come from in the other discipline, if that makes sense. So it's like being interested in the music and then being like, oh, but I also know a bit about physics, so cool, maybe I'll like get into microphones or something. Or being on the kind of technical side and doing IT or doing engineering, kind of doing audio or acoustics, but going, oh, actually me or loads of my friends play instruments, maybe I can apply this on the music side. So I say it's a real balance of both. But
a lot more interrelation, isn't there, between the creative and the scientific?
I think just to add to that, whenever you're doing something like recording in a studio or working on a live event or putting on a session, it's always a collaborative process. So even if you knew how to do everything, you would still have other people helping you. So like, for example, I didn't do anything in tech, but you end up getting people involved who do know, or you learn on the job.
Definitely. And just in terms of moving into careers in music, obviously there's loads of great degrees out there, that some focus more on the sort of creative side, some more technical focused. But also if you're interested in the more technical and or business side, there's obviously apprenticeships too. So there are new ones coming out soon, but we've helped develop assistant recording engineer. If you're interested in that work in studios, there's live event technician one as well that's out already, if you're interested in the sort of stuff that James does. And James, you went to uni, didn't you, as well, to study? So there's various routes into these careers, definitely.
Yeah, I did live events production at uni. But something I learned there is that because the course that I did, I covered all bases. So lighting, sound, rigging, logistics, like absolutely everything that is involved in my kind of job. Something I picked up pretty quick is it doesn't hurt to learn about the other things. So for instance, because I went into uni thinking I'm going to be a sound engineer. I just want to make loud noise behind a desk at the front of a hall. That's all I want to do. I don't want to do anything else. And then after like 6 months of being there, I'm like, you know what? I really like going really high up in roofs and hanging pieces of truss. like the adrenaline side of it like spoke to me. So I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to do what I wanted to do now. So the more you kind of learn across things, it doesn't hurt. And then that kind of makes me, I'm going to say I'm good at what I do, but kind of all right at what I do because I understand all the different bases of it, which I guess is transferable into anything else. Like, for instance, being like a radio presenter, if you only liked, I guess if you had like a niche radio show like Daniel P. Carter where you do metal, I guess you could just like that one kind of thing, but I guess you have to be, you have to have
open-mindedness helps, I think, doesn't it, in a lot of careers. And you'll hear this a lot, everyone watching, portfolio careers. A lot of people here do a few things. I certainly have over the years, so keep an open mind, and you'll usually end up doing a few things alongside each other to create a career. Yeah, sorry, go on.
I just wanted to say that really don't worry, whatever you're studying, it doesn't mean that's the be all and end all and that's who you're going to be for the rest of your life. I did my degree, just about finished it because I was in the middle of touring. Every band member, all of our band members, all of our crew, I think pretty much everyone who's been involved in the Go Team, crew members as well, all had degrees, and none of them had anything to do with the music industry, none of them. Partly because when I was in uni, and probably when they were too, music was very a generalized subject, or it wasn't available at all. Now you've got specialized areas of music that you can actually study, but it's all transferable skills. So no matter what you do, you can still do something else. If you're studying something, if you're not sure about it, don't worry too much. You'll have that skill and you can still do other things in the industry. It doesn't mean you're stuck doing that thing you're studying forever. So don't worry about it.
Right. Hey, so we've had a couple more questions come in, and we've down to 10 minutes already. It's been great chatting to everyone. So a quick one, quick question for Ninja, I reckon. Hello. When writing a song, do you ever find that you write something that sounds really similar to a song that already exists? If so, what do you do? So what do you do if you write something that sounds similar to something else?
I have never found that I've done that. But how would you know whoever asked the question, how would you know that it sounds similar to something else? Because if I knew it sounded similar to something else, then I would just change it. You could let someone else hear it. You could let someone else who's a bit older than you, who's a different genre than you, if you maybe have an inkling. Basically, I would just change it because I don't want my music to sound like there's a squillion different combinations of musical arrangements and lyrics and stuff that you can come up with it, with why choose something, why go forward with something that sounds like something else that someone else has done. Plus, going forward, they can sue you for it. Because I know, because we've done it. We've had people, we've had organizations, we've had to sue Google, we sued McDonald's because some fan in Thailand or Vietnam messaged us and said, no, is this you, Go Team? There's a song that sounds just like you. We've listened to that, ain't us. They ripped off our bloody sound. We've been able to sue McDonald's over there. I think Google in Germany because Go Team have a very particular style. It's kind of cheerleader and chanty with layered kind of distorted guitars and stuff. It's a very particular sound. So when someone copies it, we know. And so we had to sue Google in Germany. I've got the bloody email that says you're getting some money from Google. I was like, thanks. What did I do for that? You know, so yeah, man, just if you think it sounds like something else, just change it. It doesn't take much.
You've got to be careful, haven't you? Because there's a few examples, isn't there, of songs that were whether deliberately or accidentally very similar to other songs. So Creep, Radiohead's Creep were very much like a song by Lana Del Rey, but the Radiohead song itself was very similar to an earlier song. So the chord progression. Yeah, watch that one, definitely. Thanks for that question. We've got about 8 minutes left, so I wanted to try and wrap up soon. There's one question
for me really specifically, which I can answer quite quickly.
Oh, that's fine. I was going to come to you first.
Yeah, sorry. No,
that's fine. I'll slide down too. So, Cicely, how do you learn how to master? Do you need different equipment to the DAW, etc. you'd mix with? So maybe explain what a DAW is for everyone.
So a DAW is digital audio workstation. It's like the software that you use to work on or to create music or to any of them. Pro Tools, I think Adam listed quite a few, Logic, Cubase, whatever, Audacity, whatever it is. This really quick answer is not necessarily. What you need to do is listen to as much music as you possibly can. And then if you can, in your DAW, if you have one, see if you can bring the music in and start comparing them and start trying to analyze what it is about the music. And if you then take something that you've created and you have any access to any sort of like plugins or processes, you know, see what it is that you need to do to match up. Like that's kind of the best way to learn is to listen to as much as possible, get really good at noticing what you're hearing and like why you might be hearing it. So you might find that something sounds really loud, and is it because it's volume, or is it also because it sounds really bright, or is it because, you know, or does it sound really nice to you because it's got loads of bass? Whatever it is, that's how you learn.
Can you use Audition?
I personally can't, but I think literally it's about listening. So
and is it about playing with like compressions and stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and just experiment and so it's about tuning your ears is the best way to start out. You know, or maybe that's a bit rich. I know I'm not in my studio today. I obviously do have a lot of equipment. We do shifts, so I'm at home today. But you know, but I do it professionally, so that's fine. But to start out, you definitely don't. It's about getting tuned into listening.
What would you say the best software for someone starting out would be?
honestly, and this is a trite answer, but whatever you can get hold of.
What did you use?
So Audacity is free. We had Logic at school.
You'd use Audacity over Audition? Sorry, I have Audition. I way
I've
prefer
never
it.
used Audition. I'm only saying Audacity because it's free.
Okay.
And someone at school might be able to.
Always useful.
You know what I mean? I can say Sequoia, the one I used,
Yeah.
cost £2,000. Like, don't buy that if you're at school. That's what I mean. Yeah, they all do a similar job. And once you get to the limits of what they can do, then maybe look at another one. But,
Well, thanks. We've got about 5 minutes. So what I wanted to end with, there's so much we could talk about. But I guess what I wanted to end on is a great question that just will hopefully help everyone watching, which is, what advice would you give your younger self when thinking about where you are now to where you were before you got a career in music? Who wants to go first? Adam.
I would say people that I was around when I was younger. Well, I suppose I was very competitive as a drummer and a musician, and you end up, as you're getting older, realize that how important it is to work with people and not against people. And I think I was probably envious of some musicians and jealous of, and I think if I hadn't have had that, then I might have took a different path, but there would have been some things decisions I would have made that I would have maybe have preferred to do at the time. So I think, yeah, the main thing for me would be just to keep an eye on who's around you and treat everyone with the respect that you want to get yourself. That's what I'd change.
Great, thanks, Adam. Who's next? Ninja.
I would say it's in regards to networking. So the Go Team would do loads of touring all over the world. I could be away for, say, a month or so. And every day I would meet someone really interesting, someone who works at the venue who says, oh, I can put you in touch with this promoter. I might meet someone really interesting after the show. And it's like, I would end up at the end of that tour with all these cards and bits of paper with people's names and emails and phone numbers. I couldn't remember who they were. I just saw names. I didn't remember what they did. I don't remember what venue I met. And I just I'd get home and I'd have this clump of stuff and I'd just chuck it. And I regret that because there are so many amazing people that I could have got in touch with for various different reasons. So I'd say, when you meet people, properly document who they are. Write down their name, maybe a description of what they look like, maybe if they're male or female, what company they work for, what they did, what you were taught, like something to help you remember who they are and value every single connection. Because who you might like, I never turn my nose up at meeting anybody. It doesn't matter who they are or what they do, their age, doesn't matter how long they've been in the industry, because everybody is going to be someone else tomorrow or the month after or the next year, and you don't know where they're going to be. So don't think they can't do anything for me or whatever. It's everybody is worth creating a network with, because you just never know where they're going to be and where you're going to be and if you can help someone or not. So make a note of everyone that you meet so that you don't look back and be like, who was that person I met from Spotify? And then you don't remember what area of Spotify they worked in, and then you don't remember what you're talking about or when you met them, and now you can't email them because you look like a crazy fool. And yeah, the other thing that I said, the two things that I said, remember who they are, and the other thing, yeah, hopefully you've been making notes. Make notes. That's important too.
Ninja. Who else? James?
Yeah,
I can go. Oh, James can go.
Oh, okay. Yeah, if I was going to give myself advice, there's like a really, this is like deep, but there's a really famous philosopher called Seneca, and he said, a man who knows not which port he sails, no wind is favorable. So when that relates to me, because when I was younger, I didn't know what I wanted to do, and then I found a direction. Like, if you find a direction and have a goal, just keep pursuing it and do everything that you can to follow it, which doesn't mean put the blinders on and ignore everything else. Keep your options open. But, for me, I came out of uni and I said, right, I want to do this. I want to go on tour. And then, I kept working at it. And within a year, I'd done 3 nights at the Sydney Opera House, the Hollywood Bowl, Vienna Opera House, Royal Albert Hall, all these different venues. I'd stage manage shows at. And then I was like, okay, that's because I set my mind to it. So I guess just find something you want to do and set your mind to it. And I'm being really quick, so Jess can say.
Thanks, James. Nice.
Sorry, actually no, that's perfect, because I feel like mine feeds into yours, James. And also I think something, well, basically what everyone else has said. I don't think there's many things I would have changed about what I did. I was like very wear my heart on my sleeve, networking, good at, like I would drop people an email after being like, can we go for a coffee, like blah blah blah. But like James said, having a direction, because if you go to someone in the industry, I want to have a coffee, and you go there and you're just like, tell me what to do, they're like going to be like, I don't have anything for you, like you need to tell me. But people want to help people who have something. So like when I first started, I came to London and I had nothing, and I was like, I hate writing. I started a new music blog just so I'd be invited to gigs, just because I wanted to be there. I wanted to be in those spaces. I wanted to talk to these people, but in person. But I literally had no connections at the time. So I did this thing. I had a direction. When people saw it, even though it was a bit crap, they were like, oh, well, we know what, like, it's almost like they know how and what they want to do to help you because you're already doing. And I think if I were to go to my younger self, I'd just be like, look, just get out there and do it, because my only regret is I didn't do things sooner. There were lots of things where I just kind of wore my heart on my sleeve, like, I want to do this, but didn't do anything about it. And you just got to remember, everyone starts somewhere. And a little bit like what Adam said, I was quite competitive. I was looking at other people starting things, you know, like YouTube channels. And I was thinking, oh, I could do that better, but I just wasn't doing it. And I saw these people who I thought I could do it better than go and do it for a year and then be amazing, because everyone starts somewhere. So if you know what you want to do, find what you enjoy and just get out there and do it. Whatever you have, use your phone, use, like, you can write your, like, you could do your own podcast from home. Literally, you can just do it yourself and put it on Mixcloud or whatever. So yeah.
That's it. You've got to be doing it, definitely. And utilize your network around you, your fellow pupils at school, you know, your friends, all that sort of stuff. Cicely,
I feel like it's a lot of pressure to have the last word, but I think what I'm going to say is just quite specific, and just bearing in mind, I think that you guys, all the people listening, are at school, like thinking universities or next steps and stuff. It's as much about what you think you're going to enjoy for those few years. So don't just pick somewhere because they advertise that their graduates have gone into this one job or whatever, if you don't think you're going to enjoy the town that it's in, because you're going to have a better time in a town that you think you're going to enjoy, or a countryside, or whichever one it is that you're going to enjoy more, than waiting for something in the future, if that makes sense. So music, you know, there's so many aspects of we've all been discussing to the industry, and so many different things that you could do, and you won't even know about all the jobs. Like, I didn't know about my job until like well into my degree, so you won't know all of the things now. So just pick the ones that you do know about and the things that you do enjoy, and just really think about that for like picking your next steps, I think.
No, brilliant advice to end on, Cicely. That's great. Okay, well, I think we're done for time. So just to finish, saying thank you all very much for watching. Check out our website, ukmusic.org. Lots of info there about jobs, etc. I'm always happy to have a chat with anyone. If you're on LinkedIn already, get on LinkedIn and link up with me and the speakers if they're on LinkedIn. And yeah, thank you so much for having us. So pass back to Jenny now.